Hello and welcome to Football XI, a channel dedicated to the beautiful game. In today's video we'll be talking about the current highest goal scorers for different countries. Today's video is going to be all about England. The top 10 current men's national team list, which consists from the 1940s all the way up to recently as this year, present day. So by the time you're watching this, I recorded this video in June 2023. So things may have changed. Anywho, onto this list. Frank Lampard, who played for England for 15 years from the age of 21 all the way up to the age of 36. He started in 1999 and hung his international boots up in 2014. He accumulated 106 appearances, scoring 29 times, which is the only midfielder on the list, as he beat David Platt, who had 27 respectively. Lampard featured in Euro 2004, which actually ended up being the only Euros he attended. Amazingly, he managed to get himself to 3 World Cups, with the quarterfinals being the best of the bunch. He was also known a lot for being the player who scored that critical goal against Germany that was ruled unholy. VAR it was created because of this. So the ball over the line, yada yada, but the referee called it back and said it wasn't. This in turn could have put England through to the quarterfinals of that World Cup in 2010, but that's a story for a different time. Lampard captained England in his latter years, but of course all good things come to an end, and as I said earlier, his reign finished for international football in 2014. 9th, Sir Tom Finney. Sir Tom Finney played for England between 1946 and 1958 at the age of 24 and finished up at the age of 36. He scored 30 goals, which, to be fair... He scored 30 goals, which, to be fair, is one of 3 players on this list doing so, so technically he could be counted as 9th, 8th and 7th. The only reason why he's actually put 9th is because he done it in 76 appearances, which is the highest of the 3, and with the goal average being worse, unfairly I suppose, he's been put in 9th. Sir Tom Finney managed to get 3 World Cups under his belt and managed to score in 2 of the 3 tournaments, with one being in a 4-2 loss in the quarterfinals to Uruguay in 1954. Known by many as a hero and one of the best ever players to undoubtedly touch the grass. 8th, Alan Shearer. Plying his trade for the national side between 1992 and 2000, Shearer spent 8 years as a forward threat for England, scoring 30 times as well and doing so in 63 games. The shortest time spent on the list so far, but we've only been through 3 players. Though the goals per average nearly splits down the middle, give or take a small minute percentage, he managed to play in 2 Euros and 1 World Cup during his time with the 3 Lions, and even managed to get to the semi-finals on one of the 2 Euros trips. These days, Shearer's seen on TV quite a lot on Match of the Day with someone else who's on this list, as they've been there for a while now, and the kids who are younger will pretty much only know them for being on the show. 7th, Nat Lofthouse. Starting his career in 1950, Nat, and now OBE, played internationally for 8 years, ending his career in 1958 with 33 caps and amazingly 30 goals, which of course nearly averages to 1 a game, which is incredible. He was the FWA Football of the Year between 1952 and 53. Even though he was an incredible player, he only actually managed to get to 1 World Cup, but did grace an amazing nickname as the Lion of Vienna because he scored 2 goals against Austria in 52. One little nice feat that he got was scoring 3 goals in 2 games, which of course is nice, and that was held in the World Cup of 1954, where England were knocked out by Uruguay 4-2 in the quarters. Michael Owen. Michael Owen was a massive player in the early 2000s, as he played for England 89 times, scoring 40 goals, and me myself, having watched the guy quite a lot growing up, I did know how much of an impactful player he was for club and for country, regardless of who he played for. Attending 3 World Cups and 2 Euros, obviously very reliable. He started his international career in 1998 and hung up the boots for the national team in 2008. The crazy thing is, back in his first World Cup in '98, he managed to score 2 and get 1 assist in 4 matches, which was was a show for a new dawn and a new era when he first started. Michael Owen also won the Ballon d'Or in 2001, which obviously shows how impactful and great of a player he was. In fifth, we've got Jimmy Greaves, a prolific finisher, MBE Jimmy Greaves, who won the 1966 World Cup, whilst actually not being so impactful in that tournament. It's kind of criminal in a way that he only got fifth on this list, but also, I suppose, even though he scored 44 times in 57 matches, you could have the argument and say that he didn't really turn up on the World Cup stage, otherwise he'd have been further up and probably would have been known as a more, it's not impactful because he was clearly very impactful, but in 1966 he didn't actually score any goals in that World Cup, so he was kind of there. He actually managed to get 6 hat-tricks overall in his time for England, and 2 of them games were 4 goals, so obviously when not in the World Cup he was an incredible player. He attended 2 World Cups and 1 Euros overall, and who am I to chat so much? He's the one that has lifted this 1966 World Cup at the end of the day, regardless of whether he scored or not. That's just like, I was born in 1997, it was minus 31 years before I was even here. In fourth, we've got Gary Lineker. As I said earlier with Alan Shearer, he is his friend who does Match of the Day as well, and of course, as I said earlier, everyone that's younger these days kind of knows them for that. Gary Lineker, who is an OBE, played for England during the 80s and 90s, accumulating 80 appearances and scoring 48 goals, with his England time spanning from 1984 to 1992. With him being 4th on the list and having played for 8 years, it's crazy to think that Jimmy Greaves also plays for 8 years, but has, like 23 less appearances, which shows how much international football became more of a regular feature throughout the times. So, in fairness to Jimmy Greaves, he could have even scored more if football was as regular as it is these days. Gary Lineker was, on the other hand, very clinical when it came to the World Cup, scoring 6 goals in 5 matches in his first one, in the 86 World Cup, which gained him the Golden Boot for the tournament. England didn't get through the quarterfinals of that tournament though, because that is the Hand of God event from Argentina, with Maradona also scoring the goal of the century, so you take one, you leave one, whatever you make of that, it's incredible either way. Lineker featured in 2 World Cups where he scored 4 goals in the other, which of course would have been the Italia 90 event, which got England to the semi-finals, and inevitably losing that one, then losing the game for the decider for 3rd place, which funnily enough came against Italy. Lineker also featured in 2 Euros as well, so 2 World Cups and 2 Euros, not so bad. But nothing of note from them Euros, as England were trumped in the group stages of both. In third, we've got Sir Bobby Charlton, an absolute legend when it comes to the English game, of course known for his Manchester United days, but we're not here for that type of stuff, otherwise I'd be here talking till next Tuesday, and it's currently Saturday, about everyone's playing days, because they're all legends in their own right for various clubs. Sir Bobby Charlton also won the 1966 World Cup, of course, just like Jimmy Greaves, and to be fair, he wasn't really very eventful when it came to that tournament neither, but they both lifted the gold, so you can't really argue with that, because of course the World Cup is gold. I'm not just saying that because Sir Bobby Charlton started his international career in 1958 and finishing it off in 1970, spanning 12 years, scoring 49 goals in 106 appearances, which makes him the 3rd highest appearance maker on the list, just behind Frank Lampard, or even joint 2nd because he actually had the same as Frank Lampard. Scoring 1 goal nearly every 2 games, Sir Bobby Charlton played in 4 World Cups, but only really featured in 3, because the first one in Sweden in 1958, he wasn't really a feature at all, to be honest. He was on the bench the whole time, as he was only a child. He also featured in 1 Euros in his time, so 3/4 World Cups and 1 Euros, obviously over 12 years. You could say the man was available for nearly everything besides the Euro stage. Overall, Sir Bobby Charlton was well loved by basically everyone when it came to the English game, as he was knighted in 1994 by Queen Elizabeth II, which gives him the Sir at the start of his name. And also, he was known as being the number 1 for a long time, before, of course, the next 2 players cropped up out of nowhere, one of them being literally a child, and both of them have been rocking waves ever since, One of them has retired, and that goes by the name of Wayne Rooney in second. If you were young enough to know him and old enough to see his peak, then you know the class that Wayne Rooney possessed. Me, as an Everton fan, didn't really get to see it live because I was only a child, but I did see him a little bit later on when he played for us for another year, and he was incredible there. But going back to international football, Wayne Rooney made his international debut at the age of 17 in 2003 and didn't actually retire from the international game until 2018. Technically 2017, but I'm going to say 2018 because he did play one more game after a long spell out, which was a friendly against America. Rooney has the highest appearances on the whole list with 120 over the 15 years. He managed to get 53 goals and actually pick up 21 assists in this time, which combined is 74 goals and assists over 120 appearances, which is incredible when you think about it. Becoming a regular feature on this list, he was also captain of England in his latter years. A very versatile forward because centre forward, striker, but also could play as an attacking midfielder, centre mid, and in his earlier days, even a winger. He featured in 3 World Cups and 3 Euros, which 6 events for England, 120 appearances is no eye to bat at. Incredible feat. The only problem he had was, as I discussed earlier, back in 2017 and a bit of 2018 really, when the World Cup came around for 2018 in Russia, he kind of stamped the gaff out and said, nah, don't want to go, and basically said he'd retired. But of course, in that same tournament, England actually made it to the semi-finals against Croatia, getting knocked out, which just makes you think if Wayne Rooney was there, could have scored a goal and potentially put them through. So as much as he's an incredible player, he could have done it one more time, but I suppose injuries or whatever the excuse was, fair enough. In his own time, whilst he was playing, the best finish he ever got was being in the quarterfinals twice. Kane, still playing today, aged 29, so could get many more appearances. He scored 55 times in 82 appearances, breaking Wayne Rooney's record in March of this year when he scored 2 goals over 2 games, with the first breaking the record, the second making it even further. And yeah, he's probably still going to be accumulating all the numbers because he's at an age where he could easily go to another Euros and a World Cup and perform like he has done in the past. He's also the international captain, so like basically everyone on this list now, it may as well have been top 10 highest captain goal scorers for England, because everyone that graces the game as a forward tends to end up being the captain if they're so good. Harry Kane managed to make it to 2 World Cups and 2 Euros, of course, put an asterisk next to that because he's still going to be going to them, most likely. The best he ever made was actually a final, which was only so recently, back in 2020, when at Wembley Stadium, England bottled it against Italy and losing at the death in penalty shootouts. But that's not Harry Kane's fault. No. The best goal tally he did was score 6 goals in the 2018 World Cup. So, again, an incredible player, and obviously that gives him the right to be first on this list. Before we go though, I'd like to give a little mention to one player who was incredible in his time, Vivian Woodward, who technically would have been 5th on this list, but because he played for England in different categories, and by categories I mean international football, he played amateur football, and even featured one in the Olympics, but yeah, he actually scored 44 times in 32 games. But as I say, because of the amateur football situation, it does knock him quite a lot on the list, probably half his goals. But I'd like to give him that courteous shout out because what an incredible player he was back in his day. That was the top 10 English national team goal scorers. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, subscribe, and if you could put in the comments what nations you might want to see in this series. I'm going to be making other types of videos as well, so if there's anything else that you want to see on the channel, I know YouTube is kind of oversaturated with football channels at the moment, but I want to make my own twist on things, and I hope you guys do appreciate that. Have a nice one. Peace.